Imagine this, you build a car so devastatingly fast, so utterly dominant that after just one season of racing, the authorities change the rules to specifically ban you. Not slow you down, not handicap you, ban you entirely. Now imagine the same banned car becomes more famous than most championship winners, not because of what it did on track, but because of a video game that turned it into a legend. This is the story of how BMW built a Porsche-killing missile, broke every rule in motorsports, got kicked out of racing, and somehow won immortality in the process. This is the story of BMW M3 GTR, the car that was too good for its own good. But before we dive into this tale of German engineering gone magnificently mad, smash that subscribe button. Our aim is to reach 50 subscribers before the end of this month. And if you love the content, don't forget to hit the like button. Alright, before further delay, let's get into the story. The year is 2001 and somewhere in Stuttgart, the engineers at Porsche are sitting around, probably eating sausages and being very pleased with themselves. Why? Because their 911 GT3 RSR is absolutely, categorically and completely untouchable in American endurance racing. It's faster than a greyhound with a rocket up its backside, more reliable than a Swiss watch, and about as beatable as well it isn't beatable, which is precisely the problem. You see, over in Munich, BMW have been watching this Porsche dominance with a sort of an expression you might wear when discovering that your neighbor's hedge has grown 3 feet taller than yours overnight. It was irritating, it was infuriating, and worst of all, it was German beating German, which made it even more embarrassing. Now BMW had their E46 M3, lovely car, sophisticated, civilized, powered by a naturally aspirated straight 6 that sounded like angels gargling honey. But here's the thing about angels gargling honey. They don't win races against Porsche's flat 6 Fury. The M3 was bringing a butter knife to a sword fight, and everyone knew it. So what did BMW do? Did they admit defeat? Did they pack up their leaden horse and go home? No. They did what any self-respecting German engineering house would do when faced with a total humiliation. They went completely, utterly and magnificently mad. Picture, if you will, the scene at BMW Motorsport, a room full of very clever people with calculators and probably too much coffee, staring at a problem that seemed impossible to solve. The American Le Mans series had these pesky homologation rules. To race a car, you had to build at least 10 road-going versions. Simple enough, right? Except BMW didn't just want to build a car, they wanted to build a Porsche-killing missile. And so, buried deep in the depths of BMW's most secret engineering lair, the P60B40 was born. Not just any V8, but a 4-liter, flat-plane crank naturally aspirated monster that weighed 30 pounds less than the old straight 6. Despite having 2 more cylinders, it was smaller, lighter, and more powerful than BMW had ever put in an M3. It was engineering poetry written in aluminium and carbon fiber. This wasn't just an engine swap. This was automotive heart surgery performed by mad scientists. The entire car had to be re-engineered around this V8. New carbon fiber bodywork, wider stance, bigger brakes, and aerodynamics that looked like they had been designed by someone who really wanted to go fast. But here's where it gets properly interesting. To satisfy those homologation rules, BMW had to build 10 road cars. 10. Just 10 examples of what they call the Straßen version, literally street version in German. These weren't production cars in any meaningful sense. They were race cars with number plates, detuned racing missiles that cost $250,000 each. BMW built exactly the minimum required to satisfy the letter of the law, while completely ignoring its spirit. When the M3 GTR finally arrived at the track in 2001, it didn't just beat the competition, it obliterated it. 7 wins in 10 races, lap records tumbling like dominoes, Georg Muller taking the Drivers' Championship with the sort of ease that's normally reserved for taking candy from babies. The car was so fast, so dominant, and so utterly superior to everything else on track that it made the Porsche look about as competitive as a shopping trolley with wonky wheels. And that's when things got complicated. You see, Porsche had been playing by the rules, actual rules, not just technical regulations. Their 911 GT3 RSR was based on a real production car that real people could actually buy. BMW's M3 GTR, on the other hand, was about as production based as a space shuttle. It had a bespoke racing engine that existed nowhere else in BMW's lineup, wrapped in a body that looked like an M3 but shared about as much DNA with a showroom model as I share with a particularly handsome gorilla. The controversy was delicious. Porsche complained loudly. Every other team complained even more loudly. The ACO who ran the series found themselves in an awkward position of having to decide whether BMW had cleverly interpreted the rules or had they basically cheated with the automotive equivalent of performance-enhancing drugs. Now here's where our story takes a turn worthy of a Hollywood thriller. For 2002, the ACO changed the rules. No longer would 10 cars suffice for homologation. Now you need 100 cars and 1,000 engines based on production units. BMW took one look at these requirements, calculated the cost of building 1,000 examples of their $250,000 race car, and did what any sensible German would do. They ran away. The M3 GTR had lasted exactly one season. One glorious, controversial, dominant season that ended with BMW taking their ball and going home. It should have been the end of the story, a footnote in motorsport history, a what if that would be forgotten within a few years. But then something unexpected happened, something that would transform this barely known race car into a legend that would outlast most of the cars that actually won championships. In 2005, a video game called Need for Speed Most Wanted was released, and for reasons that probably made sense to someone at the time, they chose the M3 GTR as their hero car. Not a Ferrari, not a Lamborghini, not even a successful BMW. No, they chose this controversial, short-lived, barely existed racing missile, and the game was brilliant. The story was simple. Your M3 GTR gets stolen by a cheating rival, and you have to fight your way back up through the criminal underworld to get it back. It was automotive revenge fantasy at its finest. And suddenly, millions of teenagers around the world were falling in love with a car they had never heard of. The irony is exquisite. BMW built the M3 GTR to beat the Porsche on track, which it did. But its real victory came years later, in pixels and polygons, where it became more famous than cars that won dozens of races. It became the stuff of dreams for a generation who grew up thinking that a silver and a blue racing livery was the most beautiful thing on four wheels. Now you might wonder what made this car so special in the game. It wasn't just the looks though. Those flared fenders, that massive wing certainly helped. It was also the sound. That flat plane crank V8 shrieking through its straight cut gearboxes created a symphony that sounded like mechanical fury personified. It was the sound of barely contained violence, of engineering pushed to its limit, of a machine that wanted to go faster than physics would normally allow. Of course, being a video game, they couldn't actually record the real car. BMW wasn't about to lend out one of their priceless racing machines for sound recording. So the developer used the sound of a TVR Cerbera's V8 instead. The irony of BMW's most famous engine note actually being British. It's a sort of automotive contradiction that makes my brain hurt in the most delightful way. So what does the M3 story tell us? Well, it tells us that sometimes the most legendary cars aren't the one that won the most races or sold the most units. Sometimes they are the ones that burned the brightest for the shortest time, that pushed boundaries until they snapped, that were so audacious in their rule bending that they changed the rule forever. BMW set out to build a Porsche beater, and they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But in doing so, they created something more valuable than victory. They created a legend. The M3 GTR became proof that German engineering, when unshackled from convention and fueled by pure competitive fury, can create machines that transcends their original purpose. Today, if you are lucky enough to see one of these 10 original Straton versions, you are looking at automotive history. You are seeing what happens when engineers are given a blank check and told to build something that will win at all costs. You're witnessing the moment when BMW decided that playing by the spirit of the rules was for losers and winning was everything. And you know what? They were absolutely right, because while Porsche may have won the war by getting BMW kicked out of the series, BMW won something far more valuable. They won immortality. The M3 GTR will be remembered long after people have forgotten which Porsche won the 2002 championship. In the end, that's what matters. Not the trophies on the shelf, but the legend that lives forever. The M3 GTR proved that sometimes better to burn bright and brief than to fade slowly into obscurity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the BMW M3 GTR isn't just a car. It's a masterclass in how to lose a battle and win a war. It's how you build a legend by breaking every rule in the book. That's it for the video, guys. If you're liking the videos, do not forget to smash that subscribe button. Our aim is to reach 50 subscribers by the end of this month. Let's reach for the goal together. And if you love the content, make sure you like this video. It tells me that you like this type of content. Alright guys, that is it. I will see you again in the next one. Till then, bye bye and take care.